From the game studio behind the best-selling VR experiences of I Expect You to Die and Among Us VR comes Silent Slayer, Vault of the Vampire. In this single-player horror game, you are transformed into a vampire slayer who is on a mythic quest to destroy vampires before they wake. Tension builds as you rely on silence and precision to disarm all the traps in the various vampires' defenses. Unlike other VR horror games on the market, Silent Slayer relies on puzzle solving and precise use of tools to vanquish these monsters. You'll use a pry bar, clippers, and even a hook made from a finger bone to complete your mission. Naturally, stakes will also be provided. This jump scare VR experience is meant for the bravest of souls. Can you pass the test? Get Silent Slayer, Vault of the Vampire today on the MetaQuest store, or wishlist it on Steam. And for listeners of the Ruff Talk VR podcast, we have an exclusive discount code for 10% off by using code RUFFSLAYER-890-4FC. That's RUFFSLAYER-890-4FC. Just visit the link in our show notes and use the code RUFFSLAYER-890-4FC for 10% off Silent Slayer, Vault of the Vampire.
Welcome to another episode of Ruff Talk VR, a weekly podcast with in-depth game reviews, exclusive developer interviews, and the latest MetaQuest and virtual reality news. We join our hosts, the father-son team of D. Scruffles and Stratus today, as they spend another episode breaking down and discussing the world of virtual reality.
Hey, welcome to this episode of Ruff Talk VR. Today we have one that I'm excited for because this is an upcoming game.
No joke.
The second you saw the trailer of it, you're like, dude, when can we get this? You know,
it's like if I had made a game myself.
Yeah, we're joined with Ben Hinchliffe. He is the lead designer behind DigVR, an upcoming digging sim game that looks like there's a lot more to it than just that in terms of what the game offers. But you know, it's made by the studio Just Add Water. And
love the name.
Yeah, like I said, you've been itching at me for this since the day we saw the trailer, so We're excited. Before we get too carried away, though, Ben, do you mind to introduce yourself a little bit? Tell the listeners, who you are and what you do over at Just Add Water for DigVR.
So like you mentioned, my name's Ben Hinchliffe, lead designer at Just Add Water. I've been there just about 2 years roughly now. And prior to Just Add Water, I was at Rockstar Games for 13 years. So did a big old stint there. But yeah, that's me. And I kind of cover the all the projects we're doing at the moment, kind of like top level design, more of a creative director role, but still kind of lead design as well.
Well, I'm going to go right into it since I heard 13 years at Rockstar before we get into the main nuts and bolts of why we're here. What exactly did you do? What did you work on at Rockstar?
So the first game I worked on was Chinatown Wars, Grand Theft Auto Chinatown Wars. And then I jumped from that was LA Noire. And then from LA Noire, jumped to GTA 5. Then did GTA 5 Online. Then jumped to Red Dead 2 and Red Dead Online. And then jumped to GTA 6 just before I left.
Oh my goodness.
That's like my wish. That's like, with the except I have played Chinatown, but LA Noire, everything GTA.
Red Dead
Redemption's still it still holds up.
I think Rockstar's probably your favorite flat screen studio.
Always has been.
And you're hyped for GTA 6. So this is a fanboy moment for him, no doubt. But how did you get started at Rockstar? Was that something like fresh out of college, or did you not even go to college for game design? How did you enter this gaming industry?
Yeah, so before like all of that, I was actually a professional gamer. So at the age of 12, I did pro gaming. And that was playing like Counter-Strike, Red Alert, Sudden Strike on the PC, which is like a super old game. One of my favorites, though. So it was like FPS and RTS strategy as a pro gamer. At 15, I ended up winning something in the UK called the UK's Greatest Gamer, which was like a nationwide hunt for the best kind of pro gamer. And that was like you were given loads of random games. You didn't know what games you were going to play, but on the day they were like, okay, you're playing Super Monkey Ball, you're playing Time Splitters, you're playing Project Gotham, go. And and they give you loads of challenges. So you have to play all these random games. Ended up kind of winning that. Got to go to E3, won like all the consoles that were out that year and a year's supply of games. It was like crazy. So, I was doing all this kind of pro gaming stuff. But back then, it wasn't like it is now where you could be a streamer properly and make millions. Like back in those days, you were lucky to make like £100. So I was just like, this isn't a career, you know? So the pro gaming thing kind of went out the window a little bit. And I thought, games design, well, I was just into games. So I thought games design, I'd go to university. So I went to university and did a degree in computer games design. And that was at Huddersfield University. And as our kind of final year for university, we had to get together as a team and make a game, like as a project together with people. We ended up going to a competition, took that game to a competition. We'd made like a hybrid of like Advance Wars and Wii Sports minigames. So it was like a turn-based strategy game, but when you locked onto an enemy, it didn't just like roll the dice and do calculations. You had to play a minigame to actually make the shot hit. And if you missed and messed up the minigame, the shot missed. And that was the game. So we took that to this competition. It was being judged by Rockstar, who were there, and a couple of other companies. And our game ended up winning this competition for Best Games Design. As part of that was a 3-month like placement with Rockstar Games. So I went and did a 3-month placement with Rockstar Games. And after that, they offered me a job, but the conditions of that were you need to learn how to program. And I didn't even know what an if statement was or anything like that. No programming history whatsoever. And they were like, yeah, you learn how to kind of do, you know, some programming and basic scripting, we'll give you a job. So worked my ass off for 3 months at Rockstar. And then after it, got given a job. And then I was there for, 13 years. So straight out of uni, straight into the games industry. I've been in games my whole life, doing different bits and bobs. So, and now it just had water.
It's just incredible. Like, of all studios in the whole world to work for, you know, fresh out of college or university is just, it's like winning the jackpot at a casino. It's like not for nothing. It's a fantastic. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I haven't worked for them. Maybe they're mean and they're hard to work for, but you know,
they throw hot coffee on you all.
Yeah, every day, I don't know. But from a consumer standpoint, it's like
making some of the best games on the market.
Still, man, I can't wait for the next GTA. You have no idea, dude.
And I can imagine 13 years at one company. It's probably tempting to just, you know, ride out your career there. I mean, like we said, it's one of the top studios. Yeah. It's
quite a resume
in all of gaming. It's so prestigious. So how'd you discover VR and what made you make the jump to just add water?
Yeah, so I think you're right. Like, you know, going in from nothing to Rockstar, like going from the bottom to the top in the games industry straight away is just like crazy. Like that doesn't happen normally, doesn't happen for other people. Like it's crazy lucky for me to go from straight out of uni into one of the, you know, top companies in the world. And like you say, loads of people, I could have quite happily, I think, seen myself just, you know, working there forever for the rest of my life. And I think a lot of people have that ambition and do just stay there. But you like you say, the usual route is they work for other companies first and then get to Rockstar rather than just like leapfrogging all of that and going in at that company. So yeah, really strange. But I've been there a long time. I tried the PSVR 1 when it first came out. I tried Resident Evil on the PSVR 1. And it made me really sick, like made me really bad. Just because, you know, the PSVR ones were kind of like someone had smeared like jelly or Vaseline across the lenses. So you were kind of like having to pick things out. And I swear back then I was like, man, VR's a gimmick. It's going to die. It's like rubbish. Like I'd just thrown it out the window. I was like, nah, not having any of that. Fast forward to like, you know, Quest 2 had come out and I'd bought one and I was like, okay, I'll give this another whirl. Hooked it up to PC because I was like, I'm going to jump in at deep end, do PC VR with the Quest 2. Went straight for Half-Life Alyx. And that just like blew my mind. Like I was like, holy, you know, what, this is incredible. And as soon as I'd seen that and played it, I couldn't, it just stuck with me and I couldn't remember another gaming experience that stuck with me like that or made me want to keep playing. So then I was just like, I need to do VR. Like, I want to do VR. That's a new medium. I can do so much interesting stuff in there. So then, I just decided to take the big leap. And I was like, okay, I'm going to leave Rockstar and look for kind of somewhere to do VR. Then Just Add Water. I don't know if you know the history of the company, but our founder, who's Stuart Gilray, actually passed away 2 years ago due to COVID. And the company had just been working on like Sniper Elite VR, and they'd just released that. And they've done loads of other games in the past, like the Oddworld series and those kind of things. So he had just passed away. Loads of people kind of left the studio. It kind of shrank in size. They didn't know whether it was going to stay open or not. And they were looking for a lead designer. So this was just as I was like, I want to leave. And they were like, we need a lead designer. So those two roads kind of just met at the right time. And, they were like, we want them to come on board. And I was like, cool. Yeah, I've seen like Sniper Elite VR. Really enjoyed that. And, they were talking about their future of doing more VR and different things. And it just felt like a good fit. And since we've been there, we've done Sniper Elite VR Winter Warrior now. We did that. We're obviously doing DigVR. We might be working on other things as well, in VR. Who knows? But yeah, so that's kind of the transition. But it was Half-Life Alyx, man. That just blew my head.
And is this your first project you're working on with Just Add Water?
No, so I did worked on Sniper Elite Winter Warrior with those guys. Also worked on Power Wash Simulator. Did some Just Add Water. Did some DLC for Power Wash Sim, which we helped those guys with. And then also, working on DigVR. So 3 projects so far with these guys.
Power Wash Sim kind of lays that foundation for.
Yeah, that I love in both VR and flat screen.
Yeah.
I'm just a junkie for these type of. It's not even funny, man.
Yeah. And what's the difference in working in VR for game design versus flat screen?
Oh man, like that that was a big hurdle to jump over for, But then we'd done LA Noire VR at Rockstar, so that we'd kind of Rockstar had dabbled in that area a little bit, but then stuff the basics, like things like UI, not having the UI up on screen all the time, the comfort options, like comfort is king right in VR, and just nailing those comfort settings as well. And I had to do I watched a lot of videos straight out of the bat of VR design techniques, and played a load of different VR games to try and get a feel for the different comfort settings and the different play styles. There's the challenges compared to flat are obviously just massive. You've got, and like the VR interactions as well, everything has to be interactable, trying to not break immersion, which, is way easier to break immersion in VR than it is on a flat screen game, just because you're immersed by it. So, it's all those things. There's so many different things you need to learn to make VR successful in a good game.
Well, the resume of games that Just Add Water has is great. And I would think anywhere you probably went and threw your resume at, people would be crazy not to have jumped on it. It's like the value you bring from the flat screen world over to and from a business standpoint, is like, it's a no-brainer to me. So
even if you weren't leading projects at Rockstar, you see the way, how to make a big project like Grand Theft Auto 5, which is one of the biggest gaming projects.
Still play it.
Yeah. And online. And come on. So take us to DigVR. What exactly is DigVR?
So the way the tagline we describe it is a digging or excavator game with authentic controls, but with an arcade twist. Sim light is what we like to call it, and that's what we're kind of aiming at. So it's a game where you get to drive an excavator, different sizes of excavators. You get to run your own kind of excavator business, and unlock loads of customizations, do loads of different jobs around the town of Diglington, which is kind of set in a quaint little British-esque town we've made up in the county of Digshire. So we've got we've got all the puns in there. But the game originally kind of came about with I know you guys are know about Wired Productions, and because they did Arcade Paradise before, and I'm sure you guys played that. So Leo, who's Wired's managing director, was in Italy during COVID, and he was in lockdown. And he was on his family farm, and there was a wall that was like leaning and needed fixing. And he just thought one day, I'm going to hire a digger, and I'm just going to like knock this wall down and like rebuild this wall with this digger. So he got a digger and was doing all this. And as he was doing that, he was kind of like, well, this makes sense for VR, right? Like, why wouldn't this kind of game work in VR? And he has a relationship with our studio. He knows, some people who work for us. So he got in contact with us and was like, can you guys, you've done Sniper Elite VR. What do you think about making like an excavator game, digging game in VR. And that was kind of like Wired's high level pitch. They came to us and were just like, digging game, VR. And we were like, cool, yeah, okay. So then we had that high level pitch and we kind of had to fill in the blanks and like, what is the game going to be? How is it going to work? Like, what are you actually going to do? Because you can't just have, an empty kind of sandbox with no objectives. You need to be able to do something in progression and all those other things that actually make a game. So yeah, it's a unique relationship. So it's like it's kind of like a joint ownership, like partnership on DigVR with Wired. So yeah, they're obviously doing all the marketing and publishing it, and we're doing the dev work for it.
Well, Wired Productions, you mentioned Arcade Paradise, but then there's also The Last Worker. It is of no surprise to me
that you're working.
Yeah, that they have a sim game, a digging sim.
They don't do a game unless it starts with you're working.
Yeah.
Then the game will come into it, but you're going to work.
And for yourself as the game designer, had you ever used one of these machines before, and since then have you used it? Did you have to get the full first-hand experience?
So we actually made like an early prototype, and we knew like what the controls were. So we looked online and we're like, okay, well this does the boom, this does the stick, this does the bucket and the cab, blah 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 blah. So we made a basic prototype. We kind of got the digging working. And then we're like, okay, well, we now need to go somewhere real and like try this. And all we'd done is this prototype. We'd just been playing around in this prototype. And we went somewhere called Diggerland. I think you have Diggerland in the US.
Yeah, they get all the heavy equipment machines you can play with and stuff.
Yes. So we have one in the UK, and it's like literally like 20 minutes from our office. So we were like, cool, let's go to Diggerland, go on some real ones, see what it's like, see if the prototype even works. Like, can we control these things? So I jumped into a real one after just doing this prototype, no previous experience whatsoever, and could work the digger. Like I was swinging it around, doing the dirt, and the guy was like, have you been in one before? I was like, no, we've just been making it in VR and we've done this prototype. And he was like, that's crazy. So like you were saying, I think you jump in this. I'm not advocating anyone steal any diggers, but you could play this in VR and jump into a real one and you kind of would know the controls. And so I think that's just proof that playing it in VR, you are getting the real experience, like the authentic control experience. It's one-to-one with a real digger on those joysticks.
See, that's so much. I mean, and again, I love all simulators, construction simulators. Flat screen is cool, but it's thumbstick and pad, no matter what. And although it's fun, it's like the thought that I'll be able to actually sit in the seat of an excavator and control it with the actual controls that would theoretically exist is perfect. And I'm a huge believer in, I don't care if it's mini golf, golf plus, any simulator, you can carry some of those skills over to real world applications. So it just makes me want to go to Diggerland and start doing stuff now.
Let's be real. If the game was nothing but here's an excavator and go dig, you'd be happy. People like you would,
but the public would not. So it's everything that was mentioned, that like if there's progression and other excavators or diggers and there's jobs you have to do to make money in that sense, and I'm speculating, that's just even more home run.
Yeah. So kind of to that, how do you gamify this experience on your all end?
Yeah. So obviously, like I said, we've kind of called it a sim light. So we didn't want it to be a hardcore simulator, and that was an early decision, just because we knew, kind of just because of the Quest and the limitations of the Quest. Essentially, it's a mobile phone strapped to your face, right? That we couldn't go hardcore sim. We couldn't do all the destruction. We couldn't do all the crazy stuff you can do in sims. So we instantly knew we wanted to make it more kind of sim-like and arcadey. So we went down the route again. We've kind of played Power Wash. We've looked at those kind of games where they kind of ease you in, and we thought, well, we'll go with the traditional. You have your own business. You're going to kind of scale that up. You're going to start with a small excavator and work your way up. So we've got 4 excavators going from like a mini micro to a small, a medium, and a large. And then you go into the town of Diglington. You've got all these different people who are wanting jobs or tasks doing, and you take your excavator to these houses and different work sites and other bits and bobs and do the tasks that they're asking you to do, and then you get paid for that, and then you can use that money to unlock customizations, and you get your new diggers, and you get loads of different tool heads as well. So it's not just digging. It's we've got 7 tool heads in the game. So we've got like breakers, circular saw, auger, trimmer. We've got compactor. I'm trying to recall them all now off the top of my head. We've got a lot of different tools. So the jobs aren't just go to this garden, dig a hole. Go to the next garden, dig a hole. It isn't like that. It's go to this garden. Okay, so there's a rock. You need to break the rock first. Then you're going to pick up the bits and you're going to put them in the skip. And then you've got to dig the hole. And then, you've hit a pipe and it's leaking. And now you need to cut it out, get a new pipe. We kind of throw all these different curveballs at you and get you to do different things and really try and keep you on your toes. So just to keep that gameplay like fresh, because I think if it was just digging over and over and over and over, it'd soon wear thin. So we try and like do the peaks and troughs of gameplay to try and mix it up a little bit and keep you engaged.
It sounds like you're giving just enough of everything to keep anybody happy. It's like, I mean, I hear it all. I'm just sucking it in like a sponge. I'm like, hell yeah. But it's like one thing might not necessarily be your thing, but there's enough of the other stuff that's going to keep you. I just can't wait for this to come out.
Yeah, you're hyped.
Yeah. And I am. And I, you know what? I guarantee there'll be one person who plays it who it's going to inspire them to go, you know what? I could do this job.
Yeah.
It's like, why don't I get my CDL? It's like, come on, man.
And I think you all just showed off something at the Upload VR showcase, right?
Yes, we did. So we released our kind of unearthed features trailer, and that showed a lot of these things that I'm kind of talking about, and the mini games. So we've got mini games in there as away from the jobs. So we have this like main through campaign, which takes place in Diglington, going to all these different areas. That's about like 9 hours, like a 9-hour long campaign if you want to do the campaign. Then we've got kind of mini games in there, which again we may have like borrowed some ideas from Digland about the mini games. But we've got we've got bowling in there, which is the digger with a big bowling ball and you're having to knock the pins down. We've got the hook a duck, where we have ducks with a lot of cowboy hats on. And you've got to get the ducks with the cowboy hats on, and then new ones come in, and you've got to do that with like as quick as you can. And then we've got like those little kids like ball pits where you got on a little small digger and used to do the balls into a little pit. Well, we've done that, but with a big excavator. So now you're in this huge circus tent with these loads of balls, and you're having to put those into this other pit and get the highest score. And that's all like tied to leaderboards as well, so you can compete with friends and stuff on the mini games. So we've got those as well. We've got sandbox mode as well, which is like the generic jump in, practice, dig, use all the different tools, just mess around and do what you want. And then there's a couple of other things that I can't go into, but we will be making announcements on some other bits and bobs that will be in the game as well. But so like you say, I don't think we're skimping on content. There's a lot of things for people to play and do outside of just campaigns. They can do the mini games. They can do the other things,
Well, and a 9-hour campaign is like that actually exceeded what I thought. I was like, maybe 4 or 5 hours of campaign.
And 9 hours for one might be 13, 14 hours for another that's struggling with, or
probably 9 hours of
perfectionist
someone
with
proficient in.
Yeah. So much of that time is how good you are at actually, navigating and digging, or how much of a perfectionist you are. Somebody might rush through it and somebody might be like, look, I did everything I need to, but I need to make it look pretty, or I need to do it right, or
if
whatever.
There's any sort of rating system, you already know. Like if you and I are doing something and there's a star rating or some sort of level rating, if we don't do it all, it's like we're going back and doing it. So
so that's something we've implemented grades. So every job you do, you get a grade at the end, depending on that takes into account different factors. So you can actually play every job in the campaign as like a Zen mode or graded. So Zen mode, again, this is where we've tried to make the game not just for simulator fans. We've tried to broaden that appeal to like the more casual, more arcadey by giving people options for how they want to play. So in the campaign, you can do Zen or graded. You play in Zen, you can go in, you can smash stuff, don't have to dig the hole right, you can, drive into things, and it doesn't matter. Like it's fine. You'll get a payout that's smaller, but you can do what you want. If you're the perfectionist and you want to do the job right and not break things, you can play graded. And graded, you'll be able to get higher grades and bigger payouts, but you've got to do the job right. So you have to dig that hole right, put the dirt where on the areas you're told. If you spill any, then you'll get penalties and things. So we've kind of got these two modes for people who want to do that and people who don't. Similar, we've got different control methods. So we've got the full-on joysticks that you can use to do the arm action and the levers, or you can use the thumbsticks. We thought, why not just put that in? Because if people just want to sit back and don't want to do all this, let them use the thumbsticks. So people can sit back and just do that and do the digging with the thumbsticks if they want. We've got things in there like Dig Assist, which it kind of like auto curls the bucket for you as you're digging the ground. So one thing that people got confused with was doing both joysticks. So like this one does the boom and stick, this one does the boom and bucket, this one does like the stick and cab. And it's kind of like patting your head and rubbing your tummy at the same time. And people just were like getting really confused trying to operate both. It's one of those things that, if you do it, you master it, you learn it, you get good at it. But we wanted to take some of that frustration away. So now you can kind of push the arm down, and as it hits the ground, it'll curl the bucket for you. So you don't have to do that action, and it will curl and dig the dirt. Now, for someone who's like yourself, I guess you would want to play. I want to play authentic. I want to curl the bucket. I don't want it to do it for me. So again, we've just put in so many like options and play styles to try and broaden that appeal, to try and get it past just kind of like the sim crowd. But like for those people who are into sim, they will love this. Like, I hope you will. I hope you guys will love it.
Well, I already know if there's a most realistic mode or no gimmies, that's the one I'm going for. I want full control.
Yeah, and you want to explain a little bit what those controls are? For somebody that's works in these things, they're gonna know.
They know.
You go up, down, left, right. This one does this, but yeah, for somebody that's never that's never used a digger, an excavator, whatever the technical term is, how do you control one of those?
Yeah. So the main controls in there there's two track levers in front of you, which is very much like how a tank operates. You push both forwards, you'll go forwards. You pull one back and one forwards, and it'll rotate. So it does each track independently. So you've got those track levers front and back, and then to the sides you've got joysticks, which will, on the left, that joystick will turn the cab left and right, and it will lower the boom, so the bit closer to the digger, up and down. And on the right, you've got one that will make the stick go up and down and the bucket open and close. That's what I mean. That is like 1-to-1 for a real digger. We've actually got again, this won't mean a thing to people who don't know about diggers, because it didn't to me. We've got ISO and SAE control set up. So that's like, one is how the joystick works in the US, and one is how the joystick works in the rest of the world and Europe. And what that actually does is it flips the bucket control to the left rather than the right. So if you're, again, and we saw someone on one of our videos go, if they don't have like the options to change from ISO to SAE, I'm not buying it. And I was like, don't worry, we've done it. Like, we've done it. It's in there. Like, people who know that thing exists, it's there and they can change it. But for most people, they won't care. They won't know. They'll just play it kind of how they want to. But again, we've made sure that we are not skimping on things and that it's there for people who want it.
Well, I know you went to the Diggerland, whatever it was called. So that's that firsthand experience, but how do you guarantee that authenticity? Like, how do you guys discover that stuff of the different driving systems, in the US versus worldwide?
Yeah.
How do you guarantee that authenticity?
That was reading digger manuals. Literally, because again, it's like, well, how does a digger work? What are the pieces? What are the components? What do you call? Like the boom, again, before we started working on this, didn't know what boom, stick, they're all like the terms of the bits of the digger. Whereas I was just like arm, it's the digging arm, cool. So we had to read about these things and make sure we were getting that right. And then, we learned they were in the manuals, like SAE and ISO control schemes. And we were like, okay, cool. What does this do? Went and researched it. Okay, we need that in because, people in the US will probably want the US setup and how it works in the US, and the rest of the world in Europe will want the other one. So we need to have that, or we're just going to start alienating people. I also saw, I was looking at an excavator game that didn't have that control setup in, and it actually got quite a lot of neg reviews from people because they were like, oh, it doesn't have these in and you can't swap them over. So again, we were like, cool, we don't want to make that mistake. We want that in so people don't it's not there for them at the start. So just research, a little bit of research, and diving deep into these things.
So on release, will the US version be defaulted to the US standard, and will the European versions be defaulted to the European standards?
Will indeed. It takes your region and auto assigns it. And then in the options, you can then, so I don't know, if you were an American living in Europe playing it, you could swap it as well in the controls.
Oh, that's cool.
I did ride a British mountain bike once, and the controls were actually different. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, I swear to God. Before I jumped on it, it was a high-end mountain bike, and the kids like, just so you know, everything's opposite. And I'm like, even on the mountain bikes, dude,
That's not cool.
I couldn't believe it. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Though.
So in playtesting, have you been able to stick, professionals into this that use these machines, and what's their response to it, if so?
Yeah, so we took this to we've had one public event for this game where we took a very, very early build. And some people jumped in who had operated like forklifts. A couple of people had operated excavators before. And when they jump in, they're like, this is like 1-to-1. They are literally like, you have nailed the controls of an excavator. So those kind of people instantly get it, Dig assist is off. They want everything off, and they're just doing it, naturally. And the hardest part is when, like, say, you put people who haven't done it before in, and they just, it blows their mind, like trying to do 2 joysticks at once. So we try and say, like, well, just do one at once. That's the easiest way I found to learn, was like, just hold the left one, do that, let go, grab the right one, do that one, let go, until your brain understands what does what, and then you can do both at the same time. But yeah, we feel we've nailed it. So, to all those people who can operate diggers, you should be okay.
That's awesome. Like you were saying at the start, I agree with it 100% that you could learn through these type of games, especially for somebody that works on, example, the US version. They could challenge themselves, be like, let me teach myself the European controls and everything like that. So how long has this game been in development as well? You mentioned the early build of the game you showed off.
So it's coming up on, I'd say about 1.5 years now.
That's incredible. And do you have a rough timeline of when you would like to see the game release?
Definitely this year. Like, that is in the book.
1.5 to 2 years is a good turnaround time for this type of game.
1.5 years is pretty aggressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
especially with a game that's going to give you a 9-hour campaign before even doing anything else.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty aggressive.
And how big is the team that worked on this?
So it's a team of roughly 13.
That's impressive. We always say like that 10 to 20 number is usually the sweet spot for VR teams. And, hopefully this is another example of it. So are you looking forward to getting it out to the public and seeing what people have to say about it?
They're very excited. And, we're doing our best to try and get it to different people who can try it and give us feedback, because it's really important for us that we haven't missed anything. We don't want to be, arrogant about it or anything. We know that there's probably stuff we've missed. So we're trying to get, talking to VR influencers and different people to try out the game, to give us feedback. So we can then incorporate that back into the game, because there's definitely stuff we've missed, and we don't want to be one of those games that launches and then everyone's like, whoa, why didn't you do this? And that's missing. And we want to nail all that stuff. We want this game to come out and for people to really enjoy it and not be held back by any silly things that we might have missed. So it's key. It's really key for us. And I think this is part of probably my background of like AAA is polish. It's like polish and like getting it feeling good. And that's the hardest part of development. Like, the last 10% of dev where you're doing the polish takes like 90% of the time, right? So you'd have the game almost done, and it's just like, you're just polishing and polishing and polishing, trying to get this thing as tight and feeling as good as possible. And that's kind of where we're at right now, is trying to polish that gem and get it to a point where it just feels really nice.
Oh, and historically, Rockstar is not one that'll early release something.
Mm-hmm.
They'll sit on it for years. They don't know shit's given,
Well, I think that's why it's priceless, the experience that you're bringing over, not only in just, the actual game design experience, but just seeing how these type of projects are managed, pre-release, post-release, all of that stuff. So working in VR now, is this your new passion? Do you
Yes.
plan to stay in the VR side?
100%, like 100%. And one of the big things that I found working in VR, I've said it to a few people, it's kind of like going back to the early days of like working on like a SNES and a NES, because you don't have the graphics. Like the graphics cannot carry your game anymore. Like it's gameplay. Gameplay is king. I mean, gameplay has always been king. If your game looks amazing but plays rubbish, then not, who's going to play it? No one. And a good example of that is Minecraft, right? Look at Minecraft. Like gameplay, phenomenal. Graphics, yeah, but it does really well. And again, it's disappointing because we would love for Dig to look way better graphically and have dynamic shadows and all this other crazy stuff, right? But 50% of the budget for us on the game is the dynamic terrain. Like we actually have terrain. First Quest game ever to have dynamic terrain. We've got it in the game. Like you dig the terrain and you dump it. You can move it around, and that's eating 50% of our budget on the headset. So we knew we'd have to go more stylized with the graphics and kind of pare them back because our budget is going on the terrain and like destruction and other bits and bobs we have in the game. So it's like a lever, right? You pull down the graphics and you can have better physics. You pull down the physics, you can have better graphics. It's all this like levers game when you're making VR games. You can't push all the levers up because if you do, the headset will just explode, right? So, or you won't be at 72 frames. And if you're not at 72 frames, then, bad things happen. People start to get very sick. So that was a big learning curve was that, we can't have these uber graphics. Or if you do want amazing graphics, because things like Red Matter, okay, Red Matter 2 has amazing graphics on Quest 3, but they can only achieve that because they have these condensed environments that aren't as powerful, aren't as taxing on the headset. So they can make it look phenomenal because it's in an enclosed environment. As soon as you start opening that environment up, the graphic lever comes down. Again, it's all these like ups and down levers. And that's what we've had to work out, like the fine line of, well, how much diggable terrain can we get away with the graphical style we've got? And like just slowly tweaking it and playing around with things. So yeah, I'm hoping like the graphics, people aren't switched off by that and that cartoony kind of stylized look. They will give it a go because there's a lot of like cool stuff in there. And like I said, the dynamic terrain is like awesome.
Well, I'm a big believer that you don't need the best graphics in VR to get immersed. The second I'm in there for, I guess right away, my brain forgets that the outside world exists and whatever the graphical level in the game is, that's life.
As long as it's not like 16-bit graphics, I'm pretty happy.
Yeah.
I go into stuff knowing like the limitations of the headset, but I mean, I get the new user who might have that like, it's not PS5 or Xbox type graphics, but that's where we're at now. It's like you guys are all the companies, there's all the other developers who are like, probably wish they could have so much better graphics or better performance, but you're working with what you have and maxing it out to the best you can until there's a little more juice to be given, and then everyone jumps on it. So it's cool, man. I mean,
and when you say fully dynamic environment, so that means that you can dig wherever, bump into anything. The whole environment's interactable, so to say.
So this is where we've had to be clever, and we've got set spaces where you can dig and dump the terrain. I mean, they can go quite large, but it's not the entire level. So we have it's like isolated dynamic terrain, and outside of that, it's static. Again, we tried like, let's just do the whole level as dynamic terrain, and the headset did not like that. It was like, no, screamed in pain and switched off. So we had to like make them as big as we can get them. And then, we've got objects in the world that you hit them and they break and they go into little bits, and you get penalized if you go smashing things. But we've got other objects that are physics objects that you can bat around. So again, we've put a lot in there, and that's why, we've had to balance. But yeah, like you said, I think new users, you could see it a lot on the Upload VR kind of stream. I think some people seem to be disappointed on the graphical quality of a lot of those games, but I was looking at those games going, that looks really fun to play. Like those, like the mechanics they have, I was like, that just looks great. I want to play it. Like I guess, we know because we're in it quite a lot, but we think we see past that and we see the mechanics rather than graphics. And it's just that kind of hurdle we've got right now with VR, but it'll get better, as headsets get more powerful. like the standalone headsets anyway. So as the Quests get more powerful, we'll see better graphics. And unfortunately, I think for like the mass market, graphics is what hooks them and draws them in, and then they play the game. They're not. I think for VR, they're not thinking about gameplay then graphics. It's the other way around, right? It goes graphics then gameplay. But no, we'll get there. I think so, definitely.
I also think it's case by case for, like, you know, you mentioned Red Matter. Like, that's a game that you're not moving around a whole bunch, so I feel like the graphics are really important. With a sim, you know, when we play Power Wash Sim, I'll be honest with you, in VR, it's not like 10 out of 10 in graphics or anything, but it's no problem because I'm so preoccupied. I think when it's a game that you're doing stuff so often, I don't think the graphics are...
Well, not for nothing. Construction Simulator 1, 2, and 3, right? Phenomenal game, love it.
On flat screen?
Yeah. Not the best graphics in the world, but the gameplay, you know, holds up to the sacrifice of, and I don't know why they're not using, like, you know, photorealistic graphics on it, but
it's probably because of the amount that has to be interactable. And
the house flipper sim too. Not the best graphics, but it works. It's fine, you know. And I'm talking flat screen, so it's like I forgive as long as the performance is there and the controls work and there's not, you know, bugs. And so I do have a question, and it'll be more of a hypothetical, I guess.
Okay.
You know, perfect world scenario. We know it's coming out 2024. Game's going to be a huge success. Yay. Will there be any future roadmap to it, or will it be you know, that's a wrap, it's good, it's polished, we like it, we'll just keep it bug free with updates? And
no, we would really, really like to see a long tail on this game and support it. And there's, you know, I mean, I'm sure you can use your imagination in terms of real brands that are out there that could potentially we could partner with and do DLC of different types of excavators and things like that. So yeah, we would really love to have DLC and all these other things and keep it going for as long as we can. That would be like our ideal situation.
Okay, home run answer.
Yeah.
Nothing in stone, but I will look forward to that.
I think this one will get some momentum on release. But you mentioned some limitations of the Quest. I probably should know this going into the interview myself already, but is it coming to other platforms as well, or just Quest for now?
So I'm going to give you a politician answer and say that right now our focus is Quest, and that's it.
That's a good answer. Nobody can get upset at that. You know, nobody ever wants to promise something that you know down the line can't come. But
if I was another headset user, I'd read between the lines on that. That's how I always take those answers. I'm like, oh, okay, it's just a matter of time. We'll wait for it to come out on Quest, and then it'll come out to the PlayStation and Pico and such. Makes sense to me.
You know, you transferred over to the VR side of things because you tried VR again. You know, you fell in love with it, and you said, you know, I got to do this. But did your Rockstar peers or other people that you've networked with in the gaming industry, did they think you were crazy for going from Rockstar to what would be considered niche to a lot of, you know, the flat screen side of things?
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. And, but you know, I left on good terms with Rockstar. And they, you know, they were like, we understand that you've got to kind of go do your own thing and try this. And then we're not going to change your mind. So go do it. And the door's always open for you. So I was just kind of like, cool, I'll go do this, see how it goes. And it's obviously it's working really well. Just Add Water has gone from when I joined, like, I think there was like 6 of us. I think there was about 6 when I started, and we're now at like over 30. And so we've scaled up quite rapidly. And we've worked with a lot of other studios as well. So yeah, it's going well. And I'm like really, really enjoying my time there. Like, I literally like love making VR games. So good. It's so good.
I love to hear that the VR side is getting
well, and look at the level of talent that it's bringing in. We know it's brought in a lot of phone app developers, right?
We've seen flat screen game developers too.
But this is the first, like, as far as the credentials go, this is the first one that we've ever spoken to that's worked for Rockstar for 13 years. So no, it's to me, it's a good sign. And the fact that you're committed to VR and 100% in it to win it is even better.
Hopefully some people that know you from the flat screen side, hopefully they start paying attention after DigVR comes out. And
well, and not for nothing, you're the ones laying the foundation for the future of the game developers and such. If it's the people now doing it, so it would be like, essentially like working for Rockstar in year one. It's like that. We're gonna make some games. So it's like I just love seeing the direction this is all going.
Like you said, it's just a whole bunch of firsts too. First game with dynamic environment on the Quest. You're all laying the foundation.
First digging game as well. First ever excavator game. And that was again another challenge, because we were like, okay, we're going to make this digging game. Cool, let's look at the other digging games and see what we need to compare ourselves with. Oh, there are no digging games. Okay, cool. And where do you go from there? Like, how do you like peer review something or look at the competition and work out how they've done something? Because there isn't that. So we were having to come up with a lot of like, well, how does a digger work in VR? Does that make you feel sick? What comfort options do we need to put in that don't exist yet that we need to make sure people don't get sick in VR? So yeah, there was so many things we had to play around with, like the digger speed and turn speed, and do we want the digger to have like teleportation movement, which was like crazy to try and think about. So there's so many things where it was new ground, and again, that's what I love. Like that, one of the draws for me to VR is that it's still like the Wild West. Like there's so many games that haven't been done in VR. And if you do it, you are literally pioneering, and you have to figure these problems out, because there's no one else to turn to or look at to do it for you. You have to do it from scratch. And that's the bit I love, is like the problem solving and figuring this stuff out, and how do we get it to work? And like, we're going to be the first digging game in VR. I'm the first game with dynamic terrain. And maybe someone else will look at our game and build off that, or they will do something. And again, like you say, it's taking the medium forward. It's making those steps in different areas that hopefully might be an inspiration for someone else, or a reference point for someone else to make a different game.
I think it's 100% going to accomplish that. I think there's so many developers that watch to see what comes out and how it's done. And then that's when they have that light bulb moment of, still don't know why Farming Simulator hasn't made the jump, but whatever.
Yeah, well, I think it's you see these popular flat screen games, this style of game that works. I always use the example of Ghost of Tabor and Escape from Tarkov. There was no Tarkov in VR. So what did Combat Waffle Studios do? They went and they freaking made Ghost of Tabor.
Yeah, do it, yeah.
They went and did it themselves. And it's a proven concept that works in flat screen, but sometimes there's hesitancy in the VR scene to only do what's proven to work. 5v5 shooter,
different
rhythm
money.
game.
Different money too.
But I like to see that, you all are kind of taking a chance. Like you said, there's no other digging game. Hell yeah, that's what to go for. There's nothing.
It automatically becomes like
the number one in
digging game of the year, because there is zero competition to this, right?
Yeah. And after working in VR all day, do you still game yourself in VR? Or is it tough to put on the headset? All right,
No. Yeah, definitely. I've been playing a lot of Showdown, like jumped on Showdown. I will always just buy as many games as possible and try, even if I just like play them just for a little bit. This is part of like my designer head of like, I have to get in, I have to see it, I have to feel it and play it, even if it's for a little bit, because then I can understand it and I understand the mechanics. And yeah, I think people who there's a lot of, well, not a lot of, but I've heard of developers who make VR games who don't play VR. And I'm just like, well, how? Like, if you don't, why are you doing it? If you don't play VR and you don't understand it, and you don't understand the audience or the medium and how to use it, that blows my mind. It blows my mind. But yeah, I'm in a VR a lot, but at Showdown at the moment, I'm just like relentless on Showdown.
Showdown's good.
Yeah, we need to go back in to check out the vehicle update. We were just talking about that off air. But I love that answer, because it's true. We talk with a lot of developers, and sometimes we do get the answer from them that, hey, I don't really game anymore, and I never want to criticize them, and because I understand it's what you do all day and work, but there's that part of me, that other side of me, that it makes me want to rip out my hair, because it's like, it's so important to partake in what you're making. It sounds like to you, it's like half as a gaming fan and half as like, you kind of look at it as work study, right?
Yeah, 100%. Like, it's a lot of it. So yeah, I will not lie. Some games I play because I want to play them. Other games I will play because I feel like I have to play them for research purposes. And especially if we're looking at certain mechanics, or if we were, going to pitch for another VR game, we would have to understand how to pitch for that game. So we would look at other games that are similar and say, hey, we could do like mechanics like this, or maybe we try this, which is different to these two, so that will make it unique. I think it's you need to understand like that whole marketplace, all of the different kind of games that are available. So I'll jump into loads of different genres just to try them. I might not like them, but I will try them because you have to.
And it's important to know like what annoys consumers, what consumers like. That way you don't make that mistake in your game, or you take advantage of what works and you put that in your game. It's really important to know, in my opinion. And I
agree.
Do you tend to gravitate towards shooters and battle royale games like Showdown, or is that more of the exception?
I mean, yeah, I think I like narrative as well, like shooters and heavy narrative. And, I would love to one day, if our studio gets big enough, I would love to do a GTA style game in VR, like with a full narrative, big city, like let's just make GTA in VR. Why not? Let's just do it. But yeah, that's like my end dream is getting to that point of making something that's got a really strong narrative drive, has amazing gameplay, has great graphics when we can get there eventually. But that's my draw because that's just my background. So I do like shooters and I do like narrative and a good story. So that's kind of what I'll gravitate towards. But then, yeah, I'll happily play something like Max Mustard and give that a whirl. Anything like that. Green Hell, I was playing that the other day. The story's quite good in that. Quite like it.
Yeah, Green Hell is pretty good. Max Mustard, yeah.
Max Mustard's a lot of fun.
Just a fun game.
Green Hell has co-op coming out soon, too, so that's going to be...
And even Ben's old games, like Counter-Strike and Red Alert. It's like my resume of games.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we see enough of that either, like top-down strategy.
No.
Like real-time or RTS strategy in VR. Another one I'd love to do would be like a real-time... Did you ever play... So this is one I'd like to do. There was a game on PC called Machines, which was a real-time strategy game, but you could go into the machine in first person as well, and then kind of run around first person and shoot as the thing. I would love to do a VR game where it's like that, like RTS style strategy, and then you jump into the unit and you're controlling it first person. I think that would be great in VR.
Dude, I agree 100%. I feel like you're baiting me right now too, because I annoy our listeners, I think, and at least definitely you, with how much I talk about it. I want to see Civ in VR so bad. I think these style of gaming,
I'd take Red Alert 2 in VR.
Yeah, I'll take GTA in VR
too. Let's just duh.
And do you think that that's something that's possible? With current technical limitations. I mean, I know GTA San Andreas was announced by Meta 3 years ago, but I don't think anybody really thinks that that's...
Hold on, I hear crickets.
Yeah, nobody's still really confident in that really happening. Do you think that it's even possible in today's hardware? Do you think that that's something that we would have to see on a Quest 4 or something like that?
What, Civ or like a GTA?
A GTA.
Oh, yeah, I think it is doable, but with caveats. I think it'd have to have like heavy fogging. It'd basically be like GTA 3. GTA 2. Wait, no, 3 was the PlayStation 2 one. Yeah. So where they had it was just black, right? When you looked into the distance, it was black and you couldn't see the city. And it kind of, as you drove, it rendered the city, or it came out of the darkness. I think you could do it, but you just wouldn't be able to see the whole city. It would have to be heavily brought in and optimized. But it's doable. I think it's definitely doable.
I hope Just Add Water's making notes right now. They go, I never knew Ben wanted to do that. Let's talk after DigVR.
Oh, they know. They know. Yeah.
That's awesome. And it sounds like it's a good culture over there. Sounds like you're happy with what you're doing. So you can hear the passion in what you do when...
Well, let's be honest. People who like games, making games, make great fucking games. It's like there's no way around it. It's like you want to make something you'd play, and if you'd play it, others would play it. So I love that concept to me.
Yeah. And I guess just to get it from the game designer's mouth himself, we've kind of alluded to it over the course of the interview, but in your own words, what do you think it is that makes DigVR special?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things that make it special. I think it being the first excavator game and the first game in dynamic terrain makes it special. But I think it's the kind of the light sim element we have to it with that like arcadey stuff. But it's got all the things that the hardcore sim people want from it. And it's got things as well that the more casual audience want from it as well. So I think that's what makes it special is we haven't just gone hardcore sim and we haven't gone just arcade and fluffy. We've kind of tried to make it bridge that gap and let people who want to play their way play it, casual or like in a hardcore mode.
I love it. Love it. And how do you play? Hardcore or casual?
So yeah, before we implemented Dig Assist, I played it the hardcore way with everything off. And now if we implemented Dig Assist, I can't turn it off. I just play with Dig Assist because I'm like, man, this makes digging so much easier. No, I'm just lazy, so I'm just like, it's auto kill in the bucket for me in digging. So yeah, I play with Dig Assist on, but I have all the comfort options off. So no dot, no vignette, free movement, smooth turn. I like to play that way. So yeah.
Well, you mentioned getting sick with PlayStation VR 1. Are you somebody that's a little bit more susceptible to those type of, I guess, motion sickness issues?
I think it was the screen. Because as soon as I tried the Quest 2, I was fine. I just think it was that blurry, pixelated screens on the PSVR 1 that made me feel sick. And then I know people some of our dev team struggled with the Quest 2, but when they went to the Quest 3, because of the higher res on the screen, they don't feel sick anymore. So I think there's a link between the screen resolution and people feeling sick. And obviously as the headsets get better and the screen res gets better, I think we're going to see a reduction in general in motion sickness of people playing VR. I think that's just going to drop naturally. Obviously, some people, I think, will never get over it just because of, some people are more prone to it. And I still think there's probably comfort settings and comfort options that we haven't even thought about yet or that haven't even been created that will get created that will alleviate that even further for people. Because again, it's like VR, this kind of mass VR adoption is relatively new still, and we are still finding our feet in terms of like what works and what doesn't work, and like Assassin's Creed's done some cool stuff with like the speed and wind lines for Nexus, like when you're jumping off buildings and things, which kind of get rid of the motion sickness that way. So I just think there's so much more room for experimentation and finding these things that work.
I'm so glad I'm not really prone to. It's happened a couple of times, but some of it's probably more environmental than headset, or like early years of thinking roller coasters were the first thing I should try, which definitely not. But even some of the simple hacks, like a fan, I turn an overhead fan on a lot just to stay cool. But the benefit of having it does work.
And I do think I'm with you. I think the lens make a difference, especially, the Quest 3, you can kind of go all the way from the bottom of the IPD wheel all the way to the top, and it barely even makes a difference. Whereas on the Quest 2, because the quote unquote sweet spot is so essential, I mean, that IPD slider makes a difference. So you put it on somebody for the first time, you say, hey, find the sweet spot. What's your IPD? You have to be really perfect with the Quest 2, and there's no guarantee that you don't know what the person's seeing. So they say they're in the sweet spot. Are they? Probably not. They might be a little blurry, headset a little crooked, and then they're getting nauseous. With the Quest 3, it's like every spot is the sweet spot. So
yeah,
I do think that makes a difference too.
Is there any plan for a mixed reality mode where you could dig up your living room floor or something?
that would actually
be... So that was on, we were investigating that and seeing how we could get that to work. And like, there was just so many other questions and technical limitations that throw up of like digging up your living room. And it's like, you probably have to be stationary in the digger, because if you're sat in a chair or standing and you go forwards, the digger would move, but you wouldn't. You'd have to move. You would have to walk around the room as the digger, which felt a bit weird. So it's like, there's a lot of like, just things that wouldn't work. You'd have to be static. It would have to be just in front of you. So we just thought, there's no point like shoehorning something in just for the sake of it. If we were going to do a mixed reality digging game, I think it would have to be mixed reality only, and we'd have to focus in on that and make it the best it can be, rather than just going, let's put this throwaway MR in there. That's my view with MR at the moment as well. Like, not to do throwaway, but to, if you're going to do MR, and make a really, really good MR thing. And if you're going to do VR and do a really good VR thing, unless you can make two very substantial offerings in one game, but they rarely do. Normally it's like, you play the whole game like this. Oh, look, you can see your living room and do a little thing. And I'm like, why? Why did you do that? Just like make a proper game.
No, perfect answer. Because my brain immediately had gone to the scale factor of like, you put an excavator in my house.
Yeah, we talk about Miracle Pool being like, wow, I can't fit a pool table in my room, let alone a freaking excavator. I don't know about your all's living room, but an excavator's not fitting in there.
I would love if the campaign started with a pail and a little like beach shovel in a sand pit.
Well, like got to shovel it.
There's your start into the excavation world.
We were toying with that idea to take the mick a little bit. Was like, maybe we just drop them in a level with a spade, and then they'll see like how hard it is, and then give them a real one.
It's like doing the laundry in Arcade Paradise before you get the full arcade. And in terms of like playtesters and early development, was there an issue with motion sickness with the driving, or did you all nail that pretty good where it feels accurate?
Yeah, like the driving worked pretty well to start with, and then it as we got more used to it, we actually thought the driving was too slow. We were like, man, this thing is like a turtle. It's just sluggish. Like, let's speed it up. So we actually have in diggers you can alter the like revs on a digger, and if you alter the revs, it goes faster, but the arm movement's slower. So we've kind of taken that concept, and in the game you can you go at a set speed, but if you press in the left thumbstick like a sprint, it speeds the digger up. So you can actually go a bit quicker if you want to, but if you just want to play it slow, you can just go at your own speed, and you don't have to push the track levers all the way forwards either. You can kind of do them half and go slower. So you can choose kind of what speed you want to do the digger at as well.
And inside the digger itself, you reference like mini games and stuff inside the game. Is there any sort of little entertainment inside the digger, the excavator itself?
So like music's quite a big part of this game, and we know that when people are, in the excavators or the diggers, that they'll want to kind of zone out. So we do have a radio in the all of the diggers, so you can listen to music. And I can't go into too much details, but there is a lot of music and a wide variety of styles that will appeal to kind of everyone's taste. So you can find the track or the station you like, put that on, chill out, and just get on with the job.
I love that stuff.
It just got even better.
Yeah. Think back, we referenced like GTA at the start and stuff.
I wouldn't have even thought of a radio, dude.
That's such a highlight of a game like GTA or like Job Sim. Remember how Job Sim had the radio in it as well too? It's like that stuff just adds so much immersion. So I'm excited to check it out.
But I wouldn't have even thought of it.
I'm gonna find myself just sitting there on each on each song or station or radio person, whatever it is, and I'm probably gonna have to just listen for like 5-10 minutes without doing any work and just
I've got tons of speculation.
There's some really cool stuff we've got in there as well. Again, I can't go into it, but I'm hoping we'll update everyone later on it. But I think people are really going to enjoy the radio, obviously, with my background and what we do in those games. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
I cannot wait to get my paws on this.
Yeah, you were fiending from it from the second we saw it, and then
just by name, I was like, "What are we talking here?" I get to dig holes.
Then you see some footage out the Upload VR showcase. You're like,
no brainer,
scratching at the arms for it.
We're on it.
Did you guys like that, the Upload VR trailer?
Yeah, it was good.
I liked it a lot.
Like we said, we're
Gave
pumped
enough
for this.
of a tease.
I think trailers that show actual gameplay footage are always a hit. Nothing worse than me than a trailer that's like a drawing
excavator digging a.
Nothing but real life footage. It's one, if there's in-game engine capture, but it's like not possible stuff with playing, that's fine too, as long as it's the actual game itself. So you all gave us actual footage and news about the game. I think that's a home run trailer to me.
Yeah, I think we tried to show a lot of customizations as well, actually. I don't know if we mentioned that, but there's like 70 customization options, different paints, different skins, different decals. You can, and you unlock those by doing the jobs. Oh man, there's so much in the game. I'm like, this is the problem. We've got so much content. I'm like, damn, and we're forgetting stuff. So if you S grade a level, you will unlock a skin. as well as like some other unlocks. So it's kind of in your interest to play it in graded eventually and S grade everything, because then you will unlock all the customization stuff. If you just play it not in graded, you will still unlock things, but you won't get like the cool skins. So there's kind of like a reason to get good and to play the graded mode to get all the skins.
And is there like an in-game shop to buy stuff?
Yeah, so each digger has like a little shop in front of it, and you can go up to the digger and choose all the skins and apply different paints and things on different parts of the diggers. So you can totally customize these any way you want, with paints and skins and decals. But each digger has its own little shop, and you can buy different skins and things. Yeah.
I'm already expecting to get pictures from you saying, dude, check out my excavator.
Check it out.
Yeah.
Nah, I mean, if I were someone working for like Caterpillar, I'd be all over this, just from a sense of having the brand name. So I could see licensing coming relatively without the most difficulty from some of the heavy equipment companies that are like,
I don't think they're getting a bunch of knocks on their door about video games either, so they might actually be excited that this even.
Yeah, but I
is a
mean,
thing.
look at Farming Sim and what they've done for the farm equipment. There's like not a farm brand that you can't get with and it makes sense. Makes total sense.
And so for people like him that are hyped for this, where's the best way to follow for updates and news for the game?
Yeah, so on Twitter, you can follow at DigVR Game, or you can go to the digvrgamewebsite.com, and you can obviously wishlist it on the Meta Store right now. The page is up there with the trailer on and some screenshots and things that you can wishlist on there and follow. So we've got a lot of different socials people can follow, but if people could wishlist, that'd be great.
No, that's awesome. And, definitely we'll have to have you back on post-release once we see,
once the dust settles.
Yeah, when the release dates happen sometime in 2024, hopefully crossing fingers. I'm hyped for it, but I'm excited to hear the public's reaction to it when it's out in the wild, and we'll definitely have to have you back on. But while we have you now, do you have anything else you want to ask, Ben?
I think I'm good. I'll just wait patiently like the rest of the world, and then once it comes out, like you said, we'll have Ben back on. I think we'll probably have loads of questions, and then at that point we can start poking and prodding for roadmap, because I mean, this is one I feel good about, so it's like it's one of those ones I think it'll do pretty well.
Yeah, you've been confident on it, like we said, since that first trailer dropped, and you went, what is this? Yeah. And when can I get it? So I'm excited. I think there's a lot of people like you that love this style of game. And even for the players that aren't like diehard sim fans, it sounds like you guys have done a great job of adding gamified features to make it a fun kind of arcadey experience if that's what you want as well. So great stuff. And before we wrap it up, Ben, is there anything else you want to say to the listeners? I guess we already talked about where to go for updates and stuff like that. So anything else you want to say in closing?
No, just obviously, thanks you guys for having me. It was a pleasure to be on and speaking to you guys and speaking about myself and DigVR. And if anyone is listening and interested, obviously just go and wishlist it. Would be great. That bumps our numbers. And hopefully I can talk to you guys in the future about this project and potentially other projects we may be working on or may not be working on.
Well, with a background like yours and all the experience you carry, hopefully we see more from you over at Just Add Water. I'm excited to see what they are, and I'm biased. I'm hoping maybe one day we can see a real-time simulator in VR from you. That would be, it's a personal favorite. So Red Alert, Civilization, any of those.
Take anything.
Come on. I'll take it. So thank you so much for joining us today, Ben. Like I said before, we'll have to have you back on in the future, and good luck on the release of DigVR. I'll stay tuned for the release date, and I'm hyped for it. So for the listeners, go follow them on Twitter, on social media, bookmark their website, wishlist the game. That helps the developer so much. And Ben, thank you again for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. To listeners, subscribe, rate us 5 stars, all that stuff, and we'll check you out next week.
Take care.
Ciao, ciao.